Have you ever touched or seen a Rolex Cosmograph Daytona before? A Rolex Daytona is one of the most series released by the world-class watch brand Rolex back in 1953. The Rolex Daytona is a mechanical chronograph wristwatch designed to meet the needs of racing drivers by measuring elapsed time and calculating their average speed. And in just a snap, it has been everybody's favorite in the Rolex community, and it still is one of the most popular watches across the world up until this very day. Hi and welcome to another video from us. For today, we'll be closely looking at a Rolex Daytona and learn some of the tips and tricks for you to know how to spot a fake Rolex Daytona. So if you own one, make sure to hold it close and take a good look as we learn the ways of spotting a fake Rolex Daytona. One quick test to see if it is a real Rolex or fake is to pick it up and feel its weight. An authentic Rolex should have some weight to it. Rolex uses the best materials in manufacturing. Conversely, counterfeit watches usually have a cheaper, flimsier construction of materials. If the Rolex Daytona you're holding feels light, you're most likely holding a fake Daytona. Here are some more detailed and keen ways for you to spot a fake Rolex Daytona. Number 1. The dial. Since observing the dial is the easiest way to spot a watch if it's real or fake, you may easily notice some of these on cheaper replicas. First is the perfect font lettering. The fact that Rolex watches are flawless in design and Rolex does very thorough quality inspections on everything that leaves their facility, you would never find a real Rolex with lettering that is bubbled or crooked, or lettering that is unevenly spaced. If you notice the font and lettering is off in any way, that is a major red flag. Second, stamping on dial. Fake watches are produced at different levels of quality. On the super low quality fakes, they don't even add the Rolex name or iconic crown logo on the watch near 12 o'clock. This is, of course, an obvious giveaway that it is a fake. The replica Daytonas that do have the same stampings and crown on the dial will not have the same level of quality as a real Rolex. So, look carefully at these things for anything that seems off. A real Rolex has a crown that is in perfect alignment and much more consummate in its curves and shape than the majority of copies could ever be. Third, date window or complication. If you're looking at a Rolex Daytona watch and it has a date complication, date window, then you know immediately that it is a fake because real Daytona watches are not made with a date complication. This is something very obvious and should be one of the initial things you look for. Fourth, chronographs. The 3 subdials. All Daytonas have chronographs and are designed with 3 subdials which measure lapse time through the pushers on the case. These 3 subdials should be evenly spaced on the dial, of the same size, and they shouldn't cluster the markers at all. Besides, you should test this function to make sure it works. If it doesn't, it's absolutely a fraudulent Daytona. Fifth, the minute hand. A real Rolex Daytona will have a minute hand that is notably long. The minute hand should reach the minute indicators. Also, newer models of Rolex Daytona will have somewhat rounded hands. And lastly, take note because this may come a little tricky. The micro-etched crystal. In 2002, Rolex began putting micro-etched logos on their watches. The micro-etched logo will be at its 6 o'clock right below where it says Swiss made. And as you can see, it is very small. It's hard to see with just the naked eye, so it would be better to look for this with a magnifying glass. This minute detail is very difficult for counterfeit watches to replicate, so it's a very good indicator of a real versus fake Rolex Daytona watch. Number 2. The bezel, bracelet, and clasp. When purchasing a Rolex Daytona, be sure to check the tachymeter scale on the bezel to see if the font seems amiss or if the spacing is off. Keep in mind that there should be accurate and high-quality markings. Also remember the Rolex Daytona watches have the classic oyster bracelet and oyster clasp. These have a distinct look so they are easily recognizable. If the Daytona watch you're interested in buying has a different bracelet or clasp, or if it either seems low quality, then you can be sure it isn't a real Daytona. Number 3. The case. In purchasing a watch other than the dial, we usually flip the watch to look at the back side, right? If you also have that habit, then you better keep it to avoid fraudulent products. First, you should check the engravings. Every Rolex has engraving on the side of the case at the lugs to indicate the model number and serial number. Genuine Rolex watches have deep, flawlessly marked serial and model numbers. The lines are extremely fine and solid, and they will glow in the light at an angle sort of like a diamond cut edge does. Meanwhile, on replica watches, you will notice the engraved numbers usually consist of very light, tiny dots. Some fakes will have a sandy look to the numbers. This is due to them being acid etched. To find the model and serial numbers, remove the bracelet from the case. Then look in between the lugs on both sides. It is recommended to have a professional do this, as you don't want to damage the watch. Another thing to take note of it is that Rolex Daytona watches should not and do not have engravings on the case back. Furthermore, they do not come with transparent case backs either. If the Rolex you are inspecting has either, then you already know, put it down and walk away. Exception: the Rolex Daytona Winner 24 is the exception, as they have an engraving on the back. However, it is important to note that we have seen many fakes with this engraved on its case back. This is because a Rolex Daytona Winner is an extremely rare timepiece. Also, hologram sticker up until 2007. A hologram sticker was placed on the case back for all Rolex watches. The hologram sticker was green with Rolex printed over and over. From 2002 to 2007, there was a crown in the middle of the hologram as well. Models before 2002 had the serial number in black printed on them. So if you're looking at a post-2007 model and it has a hologram sticker on the case back, that's wrong. If you're looking at a Rolex in the era of the hologram sticker and it's 2D and doesn't change at different viewpoints, then you know it's a counterfeit Rolex. And some other quick tests to see if your Rolex Daytona is the real deal or a fake. First, listen to the ticking. It's a common misconception that a real Rolex watch's hand must sweep instead of stutter, but in fact, many genuine Rolex watches have a minute hands that stutter or ticks. A good way to test the ticking, though, is to put the Rolex in question to your ear to see if you can hear it ticking. If you can hear it ticking, it's likely a replica. Rolex watches are such high quality that the ticking will be pretty much silent. Next is the Triplock system. Is your Rolex Daytona really waterproof? Considering that besides race car drivers, sea divers also are avid fans and users of this watch, the Triplock system is basically a seal within the threads of the winding crown, which prevents water from filling the watch when submerged. There is a gasket that is visible when the crown is unscrewed completely, and most fakes will not have a properly functioning Triplock system, or there will be no seal at all. Lastly, but probably the most obvious thing in spotting a fake luxury item, especially a Rolex Daytona, is the price. On average, a Rolex Daytona starts at cost at around $10,000 US. If the price of a brand new Daytona is much less than that, you can highly assume that it is a replica. Almost everybody in this world knows what a Rolex is, for it is one of the most collected and sought-after wristwatches in the whole world. And as a consequence of its fame, there is a huge market for imitation or fake Rolex watches. And being one of the most iconic models in the Rolex lineup and highly collectible among watch enthusiasts, well, it's no surprise that the Rolex Daytona has a lot of fake units spread all over the world. We hope that this video can help you be knowledgeable of all the ways to tell if a Rolex Daytona is fake. And you should be aware that knockoffs are getting more sophisticated every year. Your best option when purchasing a Rolex Daytona, whether it is new or pre-owned, is to buy more from a reputable and trustworthy dealer, so you won't be spending and wasting your moolah over nothing. Make sure you do a thorough inspection of the case, crown, bezel, dial, bracelet, and clasp to see if you can spot anything of inferior quality. If you learned something from this video and want more of these kinds of videos, let us know in the comment section below, and make sure to hit like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you'll be updated on videos above first class. Thank you for watching, and see you again soon.